Joplin's Emancipation Park Days are celebrating African American freedom and achievements. I'm Bronte Sorotsky with how this event is being used to educate the community and bring more awareness about this day.
Plus, we are headed to Carthage for the 4-State Record Show and learning why so many locals love collecting sounds on vinyl.
The 4 States' most watched news starts now.
Well, thanks as always for tuning in. I'm Mike Mahoney. Emancipation Park Days makes a return to Joplin as 4-Staters celebrate the end of slavery. KOAN's Bronte Sorotsky has more on today's festivities.
Joplin's Emancipation Celebration commemorates the freeing of slaves. It's different from Juneteenth due to the length of time it took to get the word out that slaves were free. That's why this celebration happens in Joplin in August instead of June. It's already a long-standing tradition at Joplin's Ewart Park.
Joplin recently started having small events for Juneteenth. This has always been our Juneteenth pretty much, and so Emancipation Day is what we have celebrated here. We can go back as far as 1927 here in Ewart Park.
The celebration that started Friday night is meant to bring together people in the community while educating them on African American history, culture, and achievement.
So Emancipation Days is pretty much like a family reunion. I mean, people come together, we have good food, we have great music, we have stuff for kids every day. It's all free and open to the community to come out and enjoy. We educate about African American history, culture, and achievement through the food that we have here, through the music that we have playing all throughout the day and night. We also have resource and informational booths that we set up, and we do educate about African American history.
This celebration brought out people from all over the 4 states, including 4-state educators like Park Ranger Curtis Gregory.
It's a good day to reflect, have people come out, visitors come out and learn a little bit more about the area, about the Black history in this area, and again, just to celebrate the African American experience.
Gregory says he was attracted to the event to spread more information about the scientist. He says he would have celebrated this day as well.
He would have been a part of, of a generation that would have really celebrated Juneteenth and Emancipation Days probably most of his life.
In Joplin, Bronte Sorotsky, KUAM News.
All right, Nick Kelly is taking a little break, so the one and only Michael Hayslip is here tonight. Michael.
A much-deserved break for Mr. Kelly.
Yeah.
He decided, you know what, it's been way too hot. I need a little respite.
Probably needed a break from me, but...
That is not fair, Mr. Mahoney. That is not fair. But one thing that he did leave us with, cooler temperatures on the horizon. Now, despite the fact that we've had severe thunderstorm warnings throughout our night, and we will continue to have several more of them as we push into early Sunday morning. We're not looking at anything tornadic. We have nothing to worry about as far as hail. High wind, that is going to be our main threat. And as we push through, this is going to be a much welcome note to begin August. We're going to have temperatures that overnight lows are going to dip into the low 70s, if not some 60s on the board. And by the time we get to tomorrow afternoon, how about we just range up into the mid 80s? That sounds like a winner.
That sounds like music to my ears, Mike. Thank you so much. And of course, we'll tune back in just a few minutes. This morning may have been a bit of a hot one here in the 4-state area, but that didn't stop plenty of motorcycle enthusiasts from supporting the Joplin Humane Society. And they did it by participating in the Showing the Love Poker Run, which was organized by Cycle Connection in Joplin. There were some big bucks for the winner and a lucky loser. The winning hand took home $1,000 and the worst hand went home with $250. And even though the motorcycles were the stars of the show, the event made it known that all bikes and cages were welcome. 4-state bargain hunters were in luck today. That's because the city of Joplin held their annual downtown sidewalk sale. Businesses along Main Street between 4th and 7th came out to sell items to the community and other visitors. The annual event occurs during the last Saturday in July, and one downtown business owner tells KOAM this is one of the biggest days of the year for Joplin's downtown business community.
Like I said, this is one of our busiest days of the year. People look forward to it. We've been having phone calls probably a couple months. Are we going to have one this year? Of course, last year with COVID, we were unable to.
And Harold also says this event is a winner because it gets more people into downtown Joplin, and it gets local businesses more exposure. The city of Carthage played host to the 4-State Record Show today. It is a twice-a-year event connecting vinyl lovers with collectors. During the past several years, there's been an increase in the interest in vinyl. So KOAM's Chris Warner went down to the show to check it out.
Twice a year, in February and July, the Carthage Memorial Hall opens its doors to vinyl lovers across the region and to dealers looking to make a sale and a connection.
About 25 dealers here and 47 tables all full of collectibles, vinyl, CDs, cassettes, anything music related.
Lynn Brentforder is one of the co-hosts of the show. They started the record show 3 years ago, and he says it's growing only because of the community.
There's so much support for the vinyl community in this area, and all these dealers are generally saying they're doing better here than they do at home, shows at home, so everybody's thrilled to come out.
Tom Dutton came up from Tulsa to offer his collection. What's surprising to him at the show is the ages of the people coming out.
It's good to see the younger people coming out to buy the vinyl and buying old vinyl too. Original pressings are probably the highest point of selling here.
Dutton himself is no stranger to vinyl.
I've been collecting since I was 7. I'm 65 now. Buying records all my life. I never stopped. Even when it waned in the 90s, I still bought.
Despite that pause, in the last few years, vinyl and record players have become a trend again.
It's very good to see that medium is being recognized and it has a superior sound over CDs or any other option.
For Dutton, it's all about what we mentioned earlier, connecting to fellow vinyl lovers.
I think that's the fun I get, is that I talk to people about them. They'll ask me questions about certain bands. I'll point them to the right direction of which bands are really good and which albums are the best. And I get repeat customers that way. Steer them in the right direction, they come right back.
In Carthage, Chris Warner, KOAM News.
And organizers say they are already looking forward to next year's show, which will be in February. It is now time for us to honor one of our many 4-State heroes. Tonight we pay tribute to Howard King of Webb City, Missouri. King served in the U.S. Army and he fought in World War II in the Pacific Theater. He earned a Good Conduct Medal and many other honors. Thank you, sir, for your service and for fighting for freedom. For more information on all our 4-State heroes or to nominate your own, just log on to KOAMNewsNow.com. And we'll be right back with Michael Hayslip and another look at your weather. Plus, we are headed down to Argentina where a lagoon has turned pink and environmentalists are concerned. You'll learn what they think is happening right after weather.
Quite the end of a month of July weather as we sat pretty much in the 80s for the first 25 days, and then we finished out with a flourish as we rolled 90s for about 9 consecutive days. And now, hey, thunderstorm activity, but at least a nice beginning to August. Let's focus in on what we're looking at right now. As far as thunderstorm activity, we have been able to lift all our current severe thunderstorm warnings. We had one that stretched from Barton County into Cedar County. Once again, that has been lifted, but right now along 160, just in the area of Greenfield, still torrential rainfall coming down, and that stretches with heavy rain all the way south of I-44. Also, too, want to point out that creeping in from the west, right along the Kansas-Missouri state line, severe heavy rain along with a fair share of lightning. Look at those strikes. That's in the past 15 minutes alone. Take that off just to give you an idea of where the heavy rain is coming in. We do not have any flash flood warnings nor watches in existence as of yet. That is going to be subject to change with as much rain that's coming down in this system as it moves from west to east. Now, with that being said, do want to point out too, for those of you that may have friends or family in the boot heel, we also currently have a tornado warning that has popped up right along the Missouri River. And once again, it does not affect any of us, but did want to point that out that right here in the Cape Girardeau area, they are experiencing their fair share of severe weather as well. One thing it has done for us It has let the cold front creep in just on the southwestern side of the jet stream right there. You'll see the color contour beginning to dip down. So comparatively speaking, from what we've had for the past couple of days, we at least have a calm 7th and range line right now, and our temperatures all the way down into the low 70s throughout southwest Missouri. And as that wind begins to shift throughout northeast Oklahoma, western portion of southeast Kansas, those temperatures continue to drop through our Saturday night. Big difference is that low pressure system that was hanging over Nebraska and Iowa, finally able to penetrate through the 4 states. And when we talk about, comparatively speaking, from where it was at this point in time yesterday, double-digit drop throughout portions of Lamar, Carl Junction, and Carthage. Now, there were certain areas out on the western edge that kind of got the drop yesterday, but this thing wanted to push back and forth from north and south. And so that's why you'll notice at some point in times, you'll see a minimal drop as far as our 24-hour temperature change, but it kept on receding up to the north before it made its big push through today. And what that will do for us overnight, mild temperatures. I just want everybody to know that we are going to see ponding and puddling on a bunch of our roads. So don't think that we're out of the flood threat as of yet, because it's coming down at a good clip. And we're going to have to put up with this all the way through Sunday morning, early Sunday morning as a matter of fact. But as we get closer to sunrise, about 6:23, you'll notice everything begins to clear off. Not only that, but by the time we get to the afternoon hours, we'll get some mostly sunny skies and temperatures that are going to be absolutely delightful. We are going to begin August in the 80s. All right, so let's think about this. Coming off of a week where our average high was 96 degrees, we're going to be in the mid-80s for the first week of August until the 90s finally reemerge for Saturday and Sunday, which honestly is exactly where they should be. But look at those overnight lows. Give the air conditioning a break, as we'll be in the 60s each and every night. Mike?
Well, thanks so much, Mr. Hayslip. And Mike, check this out. A lagoon in Argentina turns an unusual color from suspected pollution. The Corbo Lagoon in southern Argentina has turned a striking shade of pink. The reservoir has changed color before, but environmental activists say this time is the most intense instance. They blame the pink lagoon on a nearby industrial park they accuse of polluting the water with chemicals such as sodium sulfite. Environmentalists worry that the chemicals are depleting oxygen and killing off life in the water. All right, when we return, we've got the latest on the Delta variant and breakthrough cases of COVID-19.
New revelations from the CDC about rare breakthrough infections among those who have been vaccinated. I'm Christina Coleman. I'll have the latest coming up.
Welcome back to your news at 9. The outbreak of the Delta variant in the United States could be worse than originally thought. A CDC report shows each person infected could potentially spread the variant to 5 to 10 other people. Fox News' Christina Coleman has the latest.
The Delta variant is as infectious as chickenpox and can potentially be spread even among people who have been vaccinated. This, according to a trove of internal documents circulating within the CDC.
If they have that breakthrough infection, the new finding is the amount of virus that they're shedding in their nose or mouth is quite high. So that means they're able to infect others.
The agency's report reflecting concern among doctors that a potential next wave of the pandemic could be worse than ones that came before.
4 times the size of the spike that occurred in January. So that's what we are facing.
Delta infections may also be more likely to lead to severe illness. Surges in some states have already led to a shortage of ICU beds. This hospital in Florida already setting up overflow tents in advance of a possible surge to keep non-COVID patients away from the infected. A number of communities around the country are returning to mask mandates as a precaution. But the CDC report goes even further, warning universal masking is essential. That's something Americans have mixed feelings about after the last year.
I'm vaccinated, but my kids aren't, obviously. They'll definitely be wearing masks more, and I'll be wearing masks probably more now.
If I see probably more of people are hospitalized with fatality rates, I'll be more concerned.
Despite the new concern, studies show the vaccines remain 90% effective in preventing severe disease, and 9 out of 10 new cases are among people who have not been vaccinated. In Los Angeles, Christina Coleman, Fox News.
A new report from the CDC finds that about 3/4 of the people who were infected in a recent COVID-19 outbreak in Provincetown, Massachusetts, had been fully vaccinated. More than 830 confirmed cases have now been linked to the coronavirus cluster in Provincetown. CDC Director Rochelle Walensky says the agency has updated its mask recommendation and says fully vaccinated Americans who live in areas with high COVID infection rates should resume wearing face masks indoors. Some people get COVID-19 and beat it, but they have still got lingering symptoms for weeks or even months later. Hospitals across the country are now launching rehab programs aimed at helping these patients, known as long haulers. Fox News' Laura Engel takes a look.
They're saying, hey, it's been 2 months since I've been sick and I'm still not able to do the things that I regularly do. And that's very frustrating.
The term long hauler is used to describe COVID survivors who never fully recovered from reduced lung function and blood clots to continued loss of smell or taste and depression. Large hospitals across the country are launching rehab programs for patients whose COVID symptoms just won't go away. Research by the Cleveland Clinic estimates about 10% of people who've had COVID-19 will develop long-haul symptoms, which is why hospitals are offering a wide range of treatments. Most notably, pulmonary rehabilitation, which includes screening the lungs and breathing exercises.
COVID long haul is a multidisciplinary process. So our psychiatry team is involved sometimes, our neurology team is involved, and physical rehabilitation is also involved as well. But what I find very helpful for patients is meeting other people who've been through it as well.
Support groups have sprung up across the internet, giving those looking for answers a sense of community and hope.
I joined a lot of them. I really felt like those support groups were my saving grace in a lot of ways. It's almost like we were all learning and growing and figuring this out together.
Christina Stanton got COVID in March of 2020 and was hospitalized after being what she says was on the brink of death. Now, over a year later, she says she is back to about 80%, but still gets winded walking up a flight of stairs.
With every wave, with every time somebody gets COVID, we always have people who have symptoms for a prolonged period of time.
Dr. Thompson is optimistic for eventual full recoveries for COVID long haulers, even if it takes several years. And while he says the patients he's treated still have waves of illnesses, no one is plateauing or getting worse. In New York, Laura Engel, Fox News.
Still to come, as wildfires continue to burn on the West Coast, you will see how the flames are taking their toll on nature. This bear cub is in recovery after the Tamarack fire scorched his little bear paws. That story and more are next. One of the National Park Service's most visited areas is likely to see a lower number of tourists this year because the water level is a lot lower. Fox News' Ashley Soriano is in Nevada taking a look at Lake Mead.
Lake Mead's elevation is the lowest it's been since 1937. People who live in the area aren't the only ones impacted. Businesses and tourists are as well. Crystal Stockwell and her family have owned Las Vegas Boat Harbor and Lake Mead Marina since 1957. The lowering lake level has been causing headaches.
Both marinas float, so our maintenance guys are busy keeping up with the lowering waters. We have to move the anchors out so that we can move the marinas out so we're not stuck in the mud.
Lake Mead's highest potential elevation is 1,229 feet, almost the same height as the Empire State Building. In 1998, it was about 1,216 feet. That's compared to today's elevation of nearly 1,069 feet.
Well, we'd like to see it entirely full. The last time the reservoir was entirely full was the late 1990s, in around 1998.
Boaters and families at the lake already feeling the impact. The National Park Service has closed some boat launch ramps.
For boaters who have been coming out here for years, this is a different landscape every time they come out now because the lake has not been this low ever in their lifetime. Right where we're standing would have been underwater even a month ago.
Experts blame dry weather patterns, little rainfall, and less snowfall. The U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, which oversees water management, is thinking about plans to conserve and store water.
Colorado River is the lifeblood for about 40 million people. Under full reservoir operations, we can generate enough power annually for about 600,000 households. Now we're down to being able to generate power for about 450,000 households.
The federal government will likely declare a water shortage by mid-August. That means less water for parts of California, Nevada, Arizona, and even northern Mexico. Now, as for Las Vegas Boat Harbor, they say business is good. People are eager to get back to their annual summer trips. In Boulder City, Nevada, I'm Ashley Soriano, Fox News.
Wildfires are continuing to burn across parts of Italy. Record-setting heat is causing many of the fires to break out on the island of Sicily. The intense flames forced the airport to close. In Catania, a fire broke out on the outskirts of the city, forcing many people to abandon their homes and evacuate the area. A local news agency is reporting that at least 150 people needed to be rescued after they were trapped by the flames. Firefighters, helicopters, and planes are continually working together to put the fires out. A 6-month-old bear is receiving treatment at a wildlife center in Lake Tahoe after it suffered burns in a California wildfire. Animal health care officials say the male cub was rescued while walking on its elbows because of the burns on its paws. A veterinarian wrapped his paws and gave the little guy some painkillers. The cub's caregivers have named him Tamarack after the fire that burned through the area. The center says it will release Tamarack next spring. We'll be right back with more news. Welcome back to your News at 9. The U.S. may soon be facing a wave of evictions. That's because the national eviction ban expires at midnight. Millions of families are still behind on their rent because of problems connected to the pandemic. People of color, single mothers, and those who haven't been vaccinated yet are considered to be the most at risk. COVID-19 has caused another shortage. This time it is ammunition. As the pandemic worsened last year and government-imposed lockdowns resulted in less police responses, many people turned to buying their own guns and ammo for protection. That resulted in a backlog of orders at many gun stores. With demand increasing, gun owners also started stocking up on ammunition. The shortage is so bad it's affecting law enforcement agencies. Some law enforcement officials say police academies are also having trouble obtaining ammo. The pandemic is also responsible for a toy shortage, and it is a cause for concern for the Toys for Tots organization. Price increases on toys are expected because of a decrease in manufactured toys due to the pandemic lockdowns. The vice chair of Toys for Tots said, quote, "This is the impact of shutting the world down. This is what happens when you make production and supply chains slow down, create bottlenecks, and now we are seeing the impact of it, which is a shortage of all sorts of things." Well, stick around. We have got a lot more news headed your way, as well as another look at your weather with Michael Hayslip and your KOAM Sports Report with Danny Terzer. That's all coming up right here on your KOAM News at 9 on Fox 14. And still to come, bad news for those of you who need a cup of coffee to get your day started. The price of a cup of joe is going up because of some bad weather in Brazil. Details are next. The price of your morning cup of joe is going up. This caffeine catastrophe is all due to the extreme drought and colder temperatures devastating Brazil, who is the world's largest producer of Arabica coffee beans. With the worst drought in roughly a century, killing as much as 70% of the coffee crops in some areas, farmers are struggling to harvest enough beans to meet global demand. It's causing the cost of Arabica coffee beans, am I saying that right? Arabica coffee beans, to rise by the largest amount in 5 years. Experts predict the overall coffee harvest in Brazil will be the lowest since 2003, with coffee consumption expected to outpace production. Google is banning what are commonly referred to as sugar daddy apps from its app store. Google says the change will take effect on September 1st. In a notice to developers, the company said, quote, "We are updating the inappropriate content policy to institute new restrictions on sexual content, specifically prohibiting compensated sexual relationships." Google's Play Store already bans what it considers to be services that may be interpreted as providing sexual acts in exchange for compensation. The action brings Google in line with its main competitor, Apple, which prohibits what it considers hookup apps. We'll be right back with Michael Hayslip and another look at your weather. Don't go anywhere.
It certainly has been a busy night of thunderstorm activity, had our fair share of watches and warnings, but find a little bit of a silver lining here as we wrap up July and begin to press into August. Put this into perspective. If we take into effect the first 22 days of July, first 22 days, we're actually cooler than the entire month of June. Then we had 9 consecutive days of 90+ degree temperatures, 9 consecutive days. In that 9-day span we averaged about 96 degrees. 96 degrees to finish off the month. So it'll be nice to have some 80s that welcome us back to August. And here's where we stand for our daily almanac on this last day of July. The record dating back to 1980, where we had 104 degrees is what chimed in at. And you'll also notice there our precipitation for the month. Remember how much rain we had at the very beginning of the month? Well, we're only going to end up with 3 inches for the entire month of July. Harken back to last year where we were a good 2 inches above this. You know, we've talked about how wet it's been lately, but honestly, last year was a whole lot more worse when it came to our flooding threats. But when we talk about flooding threats, I do want to point out what we're still receiving here on the western edge of southeast Kansas, as we've still got a good band of torrential rain rolling right across the Kansas-Missouri state line, or Kansas-Oklahoma state line, as this thing pushes east toward Missouri. And then in southwest Missouri, still sitting on some really good rain that lasts all the way south of I-44, just to the eastern side of I-49. But all things considered, we have calmed down from what we had this afternoon when the lightning and thunderstorm activity absolutely dominated the central portion of the 4 states. Now the trough of the jet stream, no longer a ridge, now a trough, working up to the Great Lakes. This thing is going to progress toward the mid-Atlantic, and as it does, it's going to usher all this thunderstorm activity that you see right here. It's going to drag right along with it from west to east. So by the time we get into Sunday, we'll be just about done. And another thing that we'll have, a shift in the winds, and it will be a welcome relief. As this moves in from the north-northeast, it's going to keep us very, very mild for the beginning of August. As a matter of fact, tomorrow, let's talk about partly sunny skies and temperatures in the mid-80s. When's the last time we can say that? Go back to July the 22nd. That's right, July the 22nd was the last time that we did not have a daily high that was not less than 90 degrees. So as this thing rolls through tonight into tomorrow, we're going to have some limited flooding concerns, mainly so everything hard is going to stay down to the south of us, and as that cloud cover clears off, should be really a delightful Sunday afternoon and really into Monday morning, no concerns. Maybe even open up the windows here during the nighttime hours, because we're talking about temperatures that are going to be able to drop into the 60s overnight. As we progress through our first week of August, very, very mild temperatures. Normally this time of year, we should be sitting about 91, 92 degrees for our average high. Look at that. 83, 82, 83 for our first 3 days of the new month. And yeah, eventually we'll kick in some 90s, but that won't be until the weekend. Our chances for rain rather limited after we're done with tomorrow morning. And we can kind of sit back and enjoy overnight lows that are going to be down into the 60s. So after a much deserved reprieve from the heat wave, we're just about done. Mike?
Well, thanks again, Mike. And hey, I've got some sports news before we actually toss things over to sports. The U.S. men's national soccer team is adding its support to the U.S. women's team, who are appealing a court decision concerning equal pay. The U.S. National Soccer Team Players Association filed an amicus brief with the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals on Friday. The brief says the women's national team, which won the World Cup in 2018, does not just deserve pay equal to the men, but should be paid more than the men's team. The support from the men's team comes after the women appealed an earlier ruling against their equal pay argument. In 2020, a court ruling said the women were paid differently due to an agreed-upon pay structure. Stay right there, sports fans. You're just 2 minutes away from Danny Terzer and your KOAM News at 9 Sports Report. That is next.
Pittsburgh Post 64 hands the Kansas Senators their first loss of the American Legion State Tournament in a huge comeback victory on Friday. Now, just 4 teams remain. Today, Pittsburgh takes on the Larned in the semifinals. Brandon Kelly gets a deep hit out to right center. Ethan Light makes it home from second. Pittsburgh up 2-0 in the third. Next inning, Ian Sanders hits this one all the way back to the wall. That scores Ian Orth to cut Pittsburgh's lead in half. Senators load the bases in the 6th, down by 1. Up the line, and Pittsburgh gets the final out at third. Isaac Elkins comes in to try and close this one out. Big swing and a miss. The Patriots hang on, winning 2-1, and Pittsburgh is headed to the championship. It's a rematch between the Kansas Senators and Pittsburgh Post 64 for the championship. The Patriots won the first meeting. Today, Pittsburgh heats up in the third. Ethan Light does a job, pops it up, and Cameron Drager makes it home to put the Patriots out on top. Then Brett Sutterby finds the grass and left. Caston Fields is going for home, slides in safe. 2-0 Pittsburgh. Senators at the plate in the bottom of the third. This one sent all the way back, a 2-run double. That evens the score at 2. Trevor Amershek keeps it that way. Huge strikeout with the bases loaded to get out of the jam. Pittsburgh goes on to become the state champions, defeating the Senators 9-6. In the majors, Kansas City is coming off a series opening loss against the Blue Jays. The Royals have been hot since the All-Star break, so they'll look to get back in the win column tonight. In Game 2, the Royals instead take back-to-back losses, this one a 4-0 shutout loss. George Springer homers twice for the Blue Jays, and Kansas City has one more shot against Toronto on Sunday. The Cardinals also in action tonight for Game 2 against the Twins. St. Louis won the first contest, but tonight they're getting blown out. Twins lead 8-1 with 1 inning left to play. Pittsburgh High School basketball standout Javon Grant makes his college decision today. Grant announced this afternoon he will continue his basketball career at Division I Sam Houston State. Grant was the Kansas 5A Player of the Year as a senior last winter. He posted 29 points per game while also pulling down 5 rebounds and dishing out 5 assists per contest. He led the Dragons to a 17-7 record and a trip to the state tournament. You can check out our full story with Grant on the sports page at KOAMNewsNow.com. Patrick Mahomes' 15 and the Mahomes Foundation joins USA Football to host a youth coaches clinic at Webb City High School. The clinic welcomes around 80 coaches from the youth levels all the way to high school. Coaches gain information about how the sport has changed, how to best teach young athletes, and how to impact their lives on and off the field. Webb City head coach John Roderick is leading the clinic. Here's his thoughts on the importance of creating a positive youth football experience.
It's your lifeline. You know, it should be one of the most important things that you have. You know, in terms of, you know, eventually all those kids that are playing in the youth are kids that are going to be playing for you in high school. So you want to make sure you have qualified coaches that are educated and you know, doing the right things with kids, because you know, so many times it's only one bad experience and that kid may not play anymore. So, you know, I always tell our youth coaches the best thing you can do for us is make sure every one of these kids is playing high school football.
Back with more news after this.
Welcome back to your KOAM News at 9 on Fox 14. These paddleboarders were a sight to be seen in Russia. Thousands of them dressed up in colorful costumes and paddled their way through the waterways of St. Petersburg today. The city hosted its annual stand-up paddleboarding festival, and costumes ranged from fairy tale characters to superheroes. The paddleboarders took in the sights and sounds of the city as they made their way along the canals. Due to the ongoing coronavirus pandemic, this year's festivities were limited. Only a certain number of people were allowed to take part, and participants had to be vaccinated, test negative, or show proof of recovery from COVID-19. We are not done yet here on your KOAM News at 9 on Fox 14. And when we return, you're going to meet a running robot that ran its way right into the history books. That story and more are coming up in just 2 quick minutes. A poodle in Tokyo has an impressive career as a clothing model. The 9-year-old dog named May has been modeling miniature kimonos outside a pet accessory store. With the Olympics in town, the store is currently offering pet-sized clothes with an Olympic theme. In exchange for her modeling services, May is paid in doggy treats. It is almost time for the highly anticipated superhero movie, The Suicide Squad. Fox News' Ashley Dvorkin talks to some of the film stars and director James Gunn about what fans can expect.
For you to restore your dignity.
The Suicide Squad unleashes an R-rated new mission for DC supervillains.
She's single, ready to mingle, looking for love. It's not with Mr. Jake once. To see her kind of really evolve to a place where he doesn't even need to be mentioned just shows that, I guess, the popularity of the character has grown, as well as she has grown emotionally as well.
Writer-director James Gunn assembled these comic book outsiders.
Most of us do not think, oh, I'm like Captain America. We walk around thinking, oh, I'm like Polka Dot Man. So I'm giving a character to all the people that feel like that around the world.
He wrote roles for actors like Idris Elba as Bloodsport.
I'm not known for being comedic or, romantic. So I was really excited to just take up the opportunity.
John Cena puts on the Peacemaker costume.
In WWE, we genuinely try to create real-life superheroes. So the correlation is really close. Let me get you out of there alive.
I'm going to get you out of here alive.
Alicia Braga is Sol Soria and notes how excited she is about the film's diversity.
I think it's so wonderful to bring, especially nowadays, for such an international film, so many different representations. And I think it's so important for us to see each other on the screen.
And hilarity ensued, even if it didn't all make the cut.
John Cena, at the end of every single scene, starts improv. He's the best improv artist I've ever worked with, but none of it's in the movie because it was just too disgusting for even me, and that's saying a lot.
The Suicide Squad is in theaters and HBO Max August 5th. In Hollywood, Ashley Dvorkin, Fox News.
It makes history. A running robot makes history. It is the first bipedal robot to run a 5K outdoors. The bot is called Cassie, and it completed the run in just over 53 minutes on a single charge. Oregon State University created the robot that taught itself to run using subtle adjustments to stay upright while in motion. The university says the robot fell twice during the 5K. The first time was due to an overheated computer, and the second time was because it made a sharp turn at a fast pace. Keep Sarah Connor on standby. All right, thanks so much for wrapping up your Saturday night with us. We will see you tomorrow for more KOAM News at 9 on Fox 14. Have a great night. Stay safe out there.